Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast. We will be previewing the French Grand Prix, but also talking about some of the news floating around the weird and wonderful world of F1. And to do that, I am joined by Nigel Chu from London with his Eurosport headset on. Nigel, how are you?
I'm very well, Adam, as you asked me just about 5 minutes ago before we started recording. And I know you're well as well, because that's what you told me.
Yes, I did. How are you coping with the heat wave?
Oh, it's not nice, to be honest. And yeah, well, we're recording this before Tuesday, which is when my graduation is. I think Adam's going to be there as well, even though he's not graduating. But I'm sure he can come along as well. But yeah, it's going to be so hot. They've got like an emergency crew there, I think, just in case someone faints, I guess, or something. Hopefully, no one does. So I'm not looking for. Yeah, I'm being serious. Yeah, that is true. So I'm not.
No. Like what I was going to say was, this is all like wild to everyone here, but I went to people's graduation in Oklahoma that was this weather, and it was just like normal. So it's not phasing me as much as everyone else at the university.
Yeah, but you're not having to wear a black gown and a suit, are you?
No, that is true. That is true. I wear a white shirt and white shorts probably. But yeah, it's Oklahoma. It was like everyone would leave. It was in the hall, and everyone would come out of the hall. And it was like right opposite the football stadium and the cool, like, attractive side of the football stadium. So people would get photos with their parents there and then immediately take everything off and just be like their, like dress or.
I might just turn up in like a shorts t-shirt and do my left-handed shake with a guy.
Yeah, do it. And the fist bump.
And a fist bump and a star jump. And a press up.
yeah. There, you got it all sorted. But yeah, how do you feel about graduating?
You know me, I'm only going because my parents want to go. I think it's pointless. I don't. It's just I don't see the point really. It's just a piece of paper at the end of the day. I mean, even when I got my result, I didn't really care.
The nostalgia of university education. Well, I mean, you've already got a job, so it doesn't even matter. You could have failed.
I mean, even like my A levels and that, it's just letters. That's how I see it. It's just letters and numbers and paper. Like, it's just that's the world to me. People. Sorry, I'm going well after people like this is a normal conversation, by the way. Like, if people listen to podcasts, this is the real me. People just, at the end of the day, what's a letter or number going to do? It's not going to harm you, is it? It's not like a monster, is it? So that's how I see it.
If your like university offer is like AAB and you get BBB, then there's two letters are going to harm you very much because you're going to go to a different university.
It's just a letter, though. It's just a letter. There's other way around.
It's a letter that changes your whole life.
Yeah, but it could change your life for good or bad, right?
No, but it's not insignificant. It still changes your life completely.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just think, to me, maybe that's because how where I am now, I just see things like literally, I guess, rather than honestly. When I
you don't wear glasses.
Since I was about 16 or 17, that's how I see the world. So yeah.
Why Nigel's so good at snooker? But yeah, well, I'm excited to see everyone graduate, even though I'm not graduating myself.
I'm excited to see people, obviously, a bit, but not excited. I'm content. I'm content to see people. But yeah. Anyway.
This is a normal Nigel conversation.
It's actually normal Nigel conversation. Even when we're sending messages, you can probably read it in my voice, like how I'm.
Anyway. Absolutely. But yeah, we will drag it back to Formula One, and I was trying to think of speaking of this, what grade would you give Daniel Ricciardo's season so far? What letter out of A to U would you, or A star to you because we're in Britain?
Yeah, but it's just a letter though, so right, using the normal system, it's got to be D, I think. I think it's better than last year. I remember the mid-season review last year, we were talking about him. I think we gave him something stupid, like, not stupid. We gave him something like an F or an E, I think. I can't remember. But I think this year hasn't been as bad for Ricciardo compared to last year. But it's still nowhere near good enough. He's, regularly off the pace compared to Norris. Even when Norris had like an older engine in Austria, for example, Norris was still ahead. I just think I think he's gone. I think he's got absolutely no confidence. He doesn't understand the car as well. I remember writing an article after Monaco last year, and how Ricciardo spoke about how he just didn't know why he was losing time. That was, after Monaco last year, there'd only been like 5 races, so you can make the excuse of, oh, he's new to the team, he's having to understand the car, but nothing has really changed much since then. So it just goes to show, if a driver is good enough, they will get used to a car, they'll get used to a team almost straight away. We've seen countless examples of that with Russell, for example, this year, and over the years in F1. So that hasn't changed. And we were talking about on the podcast how Ricciardo was the new Alex Albon after Austria last year as well. People saying, "Oh, you can't be saying that; it's too early. It's the first season, whatever." But we're right. It just shows those first 8-9 races of a campaign. Most of the time, it sets the trend for how the rest of your career can go at a team, unless you change teams, and nothing has changed really since then. So yes, it's a little bit better. He's had some better results, but in terms of his actual driving, I think he's still got no confidence, and I don't see how it's going to change. So
yeah, and in terms of the results, he's only scored points on Sunday the same amount of times as Norris has failed to score points. Like, it's really, he's just not. He's got three finishes in the top 10 over the season. Norris is way up, kind of leading the best of the rest, pack in the championship right now, and he's just not had. Yeah, he's just not really had anything stand out for a while. At Silverstone, he was just so far off the pace, and he didn't understand. He was saying he just didn't understand where it was coming from, and he turned up to Austria and didn't really, he didn't set the world alight there. I think he was better, but he didn't, show it was there. And it's just not. It's kind of been one thing after another, and it's similar to Alvin. There's just like not a weekend where he gets in and it all goes smoothly, really. And that's like, I think you summed it up perfectly. By this stage of a driver of his quality, if it was going to click, it should have clicked by now. So,
and that's the thing, our expectations are so low now. We're just saying, we want to match Norris, but really, when he joined McLaren, everyone was talking about, he was good. This is where he can become world champion. He can add to his race wins, which he did, obviously with Monza, but that turned out to be a one-off weekend, really. And even then, you can argue Norris was a bit faster, and he played the team orders game by not attacking him.
The Drive to Survive win. It's a storyline win rather than a career improving win.
It's just, I never thought I'd be talking about a driver of that quality of Ricciardo like this. This downfall is so bizarre. There's not many examples in F1 ever where a driver has had been so good and then to drop so much. Even Vettel, I don't think Vettel's downfall was this bad. No. I don't think.
Alex Albon springs to mind at Red Bull, but
we're not bringing that up. Just, I don't know what's gone wrong. And
he's 33, which was shock. I don't know. In my mind, I just thought he was kind of late 20s, like maybe 30, 31. 33 is old. Like, maybe, I know drivers are going longer in their careers, and Hamilton's 37 and whatever, but in terms of that, is really a time where you are thinking about how many more seasons. Even if he was driving well, you'd be thinking how many more seasons can we get out of.
No, I don't think. I think if you're driving well, I think you can go on for as long as you want. I mean,
until you stop driving well. That's what I mean. Like, it's not 33. It's kind of like, it's not. You can't like rediscover this. Well, I mean, you can, but it's just more unlikely than if you're like 26 or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know. He was older than I expected, and that kind of just removes, it's not kind of a long-term thing, or, for McLaren don't have loads of years to throw away anyway. So, yeah, I think the writing seems to be on the wall. He's contracted until 2023, to the end of 2023. Do you think that means anything? I don't really.
Surely there have to be some breakout clauses. If there isn't, which Ricciardo seems to be, banging on about, that he is contracted until next year. If there aren't any breakout clauses, I'll be staggered, and it's McLaren's fault for not having those breakout clauses for performance or bad performance. So I'm guessing there are. If there aren't, then, and if he does stay, then McLaren have really made a massive mistake when they signed a contract 2 years ago now. So yeah, I think they'd even be willing to pay him to leave, a bit like what Ferrari did with Raikkonen in 21st, Raikkonen spell.
21st century.
Before he went, yeah, I think 2009 it was.
Yeah.
But when they brought in Alonso. I think they might even be willing to do that, because at the end of the day, if you don't perform in sport, if you don't perform in F1, you can't stay at a team. Why would a team want a driver, especially of that quality, who's underperforming so much? I mean, yes, he will have the odd great race. I'm sure he'll get a 5th or a 6th, or he'll do something brilliant in the second half of the season, but it's about that consistency, and he hasn't been able to put in a run of 3 or 4 races at all over 18 months now, and that is completely unacceptable, really.
Yeah, and it's not the only situation where I'd expect there to be him not have those clauses in his contract is if it was someone huge stepping down, like if they'd signed Verstappen and Hamilton stepping down kind of from a higher team to a lower team, but they basically got to write the contract themselves. Like he wasn't, he was coming from Renault, he was coming from another midfield slot. There wasn't really kind of a big battle to, it would have been McLaren versus Renault really for his signature. So, I can't see there not being some way to get out of it. And that's, obviously people sign contracts and the headline is the end date, but in sport there is nearly always these clauses that you can get out of. And yeah, I would be extremely surprised. I know Ricciardo keeps kind of harping back to it, but I'd be so surprised if there's not a way they can get out. And like you say, I think they'd be willing to pay him, a decent chunk really, just because
he's getting paid a decent chunk now for being miles around Norris.
but it's not like they should, although I think Alpine is clearly faster this year, they're still in the battle for 4th in the Constructors' Championship. And if Ricciardo was able to, match Norris or be able to get kind of somewhere near Norris, then they would have a decent lead in that. And, whether that's going to be the case at the end of the season, I don't know. But basically Norris doing everything himself right now to help out McLaren in that area. So, yeah, I think
McLaren's problems are bigger than. I don't think they care too much about the 4th. They've been 4th for years now, aren't they? I think, this is a whole different issue, but they're showing no signs of getting back to the top. So I think 4th place or 5th place in the constructors doesn't really. I mean, yes, there's a money aspect, but McLaren have been long talking about trying to get back to the top, just like Ferrari. But they haven't done it over the last 3 or 4 years. But that's a whole different issue.
Yeah, I agree with that. I still think 4th will be big for them. It's still like you want to do the best out of the teams you're fighting. And at the moment, they're not able to fight Mercedes or higher. But I think that is a realistic target. And as a competitive team, then I'd imagine that's what they're aiming for. And yeah, I think there's probably a bigger McLaren discussion to have at some point that's not now. But yeah, I think. It's definitely disappointing looking back at where they were with Norris and Sainz to where they are now. There's not been that step forward at all. But yeah, I still think, if they can get 4th in championship, that'd be huge. I don't think they can, but it's, I think that is because of, partly down to Ricciardo that he's not playing that sporting driver. So yeah. But
so do you think he's gone at the end of this year?
Yes, I do. Do you?
Yes.
And who do you think's replacing him?
That's the big question, isn't it?
That is the big question.
There's lots of talk. I'll just provide a bit of context first for the viewers in case you haven't heard it. But yeah, Colton Herta, IndyCar driver, he had a test earlier this week, so would have been 12th of July-ish in Portimao, Adam's favourite circuit. So he had his first McLaren F1 test there. Alex Palou has joined McLaren Racing. Well, kind of, because there's a massive spat between his current IndyCar team, Chip Ganassi, who announced that he is staying for 2023, only for a few hours later, Palou said, "No, I'm not." And then McLaren announced he's joined McLaren Racing. Now, they didn't say McLaren IndyCar, they just said McLaren Racing. So that could be Extreme E, formerly F1, IndyCar, because McLaren have teams in all those series. But yeah, I think that dispute between the Chip Ganassi and McLaren IndyCar teams, at least, or McLaren Racing is going to go to the court, quite frankly, because I have no idea what's happened there. And then you got the F1 drivers. Will someone like Sebastian Vettel decide to, whose contract runs out at the end of this year, will he decide to go from Aston Martin to McLaren? Pierre Gasly has already signed for AlphaTauri. He would have been an option, but since he's just signed, I don't think he's going to go there. And then Alex Albon, perhaps. I don't know. There's a few drivers on the F1 grid. So to answer your question, after providing context, I think Palou. I think it's going to be a surprise move. I think because he is the IndyCar champion. Yes, he didn't show too much when he was racing in Europe, but I think there was no reason for him to leave Chip Ganassi as the champion as well. Someone who's beaten Scott Dixon in most races. Scott Dixon's one of the greatest IndyCar drivers there's ever been. I think the only reason he signed for McLaren Racing is because of a possible F1 seat. So that is my take.
Could that be a possible F1 seat in a year or two?
Possibly. It could be 2024. But then I would have thought he would have stayed at Chip Ganassi for another year. I don't see why he moved to McLaren IndyCar, because Chip Ganassi is one of the top teams.
Yeah.
And McLaren are McLaren's still a top team because they got Pato O'Ward, who was fighting for the championship last year, but they don't quite have the same status, I guess. It'd be a bit like McLaren moving from Ferrari to
Mercedes.
I guess. I don't know, because McLaren kind of new to IndyCar, so I can't really make a comparison. But yeah, it'd be like going from one of the top teams to like the second tier. But obviously in IndyCar, you can still fight for the championship a bit. But yeah, I think I'll go for Palou right now. I think that'll be quite exciting as well.
See, I think Gasly would be the best option in terms of in the car. Like, I think it would be a good move for him, kind of getting. I know McLaren haven't really made that progress, but still getting to a standalone team that I guess has those ambitions of fighting for the championship someday, or fighting for race wins or whatever. And again, like we said with Ricciardo, yes, he's contracted for another year, but yeah, I'd imagine. Look,
Gasly's just signed one though, hasn't he?
But
how many instances can you think of when a team has signed the driver and then a month or 2 months later, I can't think of any.
But like, in sport, if a team wants it enough, then it will happen. Like, the money will talk, and it will happen. So I think if a team and driver want it bad enough, then that'll happen. I don't think it will, though. I think that'd be the best fit on paper in terms of, I think he'd be the best driver going in. I don't know so much about the IndyCar drivers, and then Vettel and Albon are really kind of weird ones. Like, I just didn't. If Vettel went in, I think it'd be great for Norris. I think it'd be great. You can learn off Vettel and not probably have the challenge kind of week.
Oh, I forgot another option. This is probably actually the best Piastri. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was going to mention him later, but yeah, Vettel and Albon seem a bit left field. Like, I wouldn't have expected them to come in.
Vettel, I can see that, because that experience, kind of mentoring Norris with things that Aston Martin don't seem too great at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, McLaren's not that great either, but McLaren is a bit more of a step up, I'd say. They've got bigger ambitions, I think. So Vettel, I can see. Albon, probably not. But
yeah. I don't. I guess for Albon, it's a move at the grid. It's just, I don't know. You're getting someone who might be able to fight with Norris, but I wouldn't expect him to be able to beat Norris. And then it's kind of where I don't know what you're getting from that. Really, you're not getting the experience that you would with Vettel. So it seems a bit of it. He's not he has done really well this season.
He's still got that Red Bull link as well.
Yeah.
Would Red Bull let him go to McLaren?
I think so. It'd be. I thought of a perfect comparison. No, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I think I think they would, or again, I think they could. There could be ways around that, but it's just a bit. He's not kind of proven and reliably fast enough to be, a kind of rival for Norris right now, and he doesn't have the experience of Vettel, so he kind of doesn't fit into either camp well enough for me. Piastri is a very interesting one. He is in McLaren's stable of reserve drivers, which I didn't even remember being announced at the start of the season. But yeah, he obviously won Formula Renault Euro Cup, Formula 3 and Formula 2 back to back to back, and then didn't get a shot in F1. So yeah, I think he'd be a great one to see on the grid. I think, would McLaren want a rookie coming in? I think they wouldn't mind it, because that's what
I think Norris is experienced enough now. What, since 2019, 4 seasons, 5 seasons next year. That is enough, I think.
Yeah.
And I think Alpine they have said many times that, Piastri will be on the grid, and they're willing to put him at a team for a year or 2 years, because it looks like Alonso and Ocon are going to stay unless Alonso moves on, I guess. So unless Piastri goes to Williams, maybe, then McLaren. Yeah, it's going to be Williams and McLaren if he's going to be on the grid, I think. I can't remember if it Haas. No, not Haas. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, if Vettel went to McLaren, then he could replace Vettel at Aston.
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, I think he's worth a shot. Like, surely, I think he's
has to be.
Yeah. So I'd really like. He's the one I'd most probably like to see. But I am quite intrigued by the IndyCar options. I'd be really interested to see how that worked, because it could pave the way for more in future. Or
it hasn't happened for such a long time, since Sebastian Bourdais, I think 2007-ish, when he was the champion. Well, they had like a split, so he was like one of the champions. They had like a split and stuff, but yeah, he joined Toro Rosso and obviously didn't go very well. But I just think, I don't know, it's weird, because like, why is Colton Herta testing a McLaren F1 car? That surely means something. He wouldn't just be doing it, randomly. Like, there's been obviously a lot of talk about Herta. He came really close to joining Alfa Romeo last year as well. Like, a lot closer than people think. There's that American factor as well. Because F1's pushing for an American driver, but I think he's overhyped, to be honest. And Pallot's a bit more under the radar kind of thing. So I don't know. I'd like to see one of them get it.
I didn't realise it was Palou rather than Palau, so shows how much I know. But yeah, I think the last American F1 driver was 2015, I want to say.
Alex Rossi.
Under Rossi. Yeah, so it's been all right. I think there is really there would be a lot of appetite from F1 and probably from McLaren as well, because they've already got the American link, but kind of strengthening that and kind of corporately pushing the brand. But from F1, that will be huge. They imagine they'll really, really want a American F1 driver on the grid, and with 3 races in America next year, then having that in place as well. So I think it's there. I don't know. It's just, the test could just be kind of looking at where Herta is in the car, and it might. I think it means he's in the conversation. I don't think it means anything more than that, because it can be evaluation, and they've got. I mean, Piastri's going to be doing a free practice session. He was meant to do France, but he's now going to do after the summer break. So yeah, I think all of the kind of ones who'd be making their debut would be interesting for different reasons, but I think Piastri is maybe the one. I don't know. I think he deserves it the most, and it'd be interesting to see. I think Gasly on paper would be the best option, but I don't see it happening.
So what's your answer?
Piastri.
Going to get it. Piastri. Yeah. It's weird, because I don't think there's a favourite, is there? I mean, obviously these things can play out in September, October. It might, could be during the summer break, but it's, to me, everyone's got an equal chance right now. Everyone's got a 20% chance.
Yeah,
those 5-6 drivers we mentioned.
I think it will come down to who. I think McLaren because as you say, there's nothing to kind of split them on paper. I think their McLaren relationship will really come down to it in terms of whoever impresses the most on a test, or whoever they just have the best, I guess, personal relationship with.
That's why I think Palou, because I think Zach Brown and him must have talked a lot about this. And as I think he's moved his left Chip Ganassi to the IndyCar team for this once in a lifetime opportunity. So, but equally, I mean, I'm saying I'm still thinking Ricciardo might still be there. Like, there's a little bit of me thinks, because McLaren are not at the top anyway, they might just hang around with him for another year. I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, you might just come to say Palou. No, I think we'll see. Like you say, it seems so up in the air. So we'll keep tabs on it and we will cover it probably in the summer break if we do a silly season episode, which we probably will, and then we'll cover it after an announcement is made either way. Although I guess they won't announce that he's staying. It will just be that he does stay. Yeah. And if he does pick up form, then things could change as well. Or if he just shows, even if he shows a 3-race stretch where he's battling Norris consistently, that could be enough to convince them to stay for another year, because it would, taking out a drive, but it's just it just seems so low risk to replace him, because you can't. How can you have worse performance now? Like the distance to the floor versus the distance to the ceiling of where that second McLaren seat could be is, just so much. There's so much more room to go up. So it just doesn't seem like a big risk to replace him to me. But yeah, we'll have to see on that. And before we move on to talking about some of the drivers and the French Grand Prix, then we have a listener submission. Well, not a listener submission, but we've got a submission. Yeah, so do I actually. We got a submission on this debate from a certain Frederick Coates, and he's got an interesting take. I don't think he agrees entirely with us, but he is basically saying that he thinks Ricciardo will stay at McLaren unless Vettel leaves or retires from F1, and then Ricciardo should take Vettel's Aston Martin. He should go out for it. So he says no chance. He should continue to fight for F1. He wants to be there, and while his form is peaky, he's still fast from his side. He should continue. Leave McLaren is a different question. It's clearly a bizarre car and hasn't suited him. If he can wrangle a drive in an Aston or Williams, then he should, because the chances are they will suit him better and he can unlock performance. But McLaren is his F1 lifeline. The option is on his side. From that side, I think Danny Rick will stay for 2023.
There's a line in there where he says it's clearly a bizarre car and hasn't suited him. Absolute rubbish, Freddie. He's had 18 months. He's had 2 completely different regulation changes. Last year, 2021, the older cars now, and this year, and he still hasn't suited him. What do you want? You can't gift him a car. Rubbish. I'm not having that. He's not performing. Get rid of him.
I agree with you. I think it's kind of gone past that side now. And also, this is a bizarre car. Like Norris is nailing it. Like Norris is, it's suiting him, and you can't. How can you design your car for your 33-year-old driver, or have a compromise where you're going to harm Norris's chances when he's clearly the future of McLaren? So yeah, I have agreed with a lot of Freddie's takes over this podcast. I mean, there's been 135 episodes, so it'd be pretty bad if I hadn't really. But this one, yeah, I just don't think he should. I think he might. That's I think that's a different kind of. I think it's possible that he does, but I don't think he shouldn't. I think it's more likely that he's not on the grid in Papaya next year. If he did leave McLaren, what do you think are his options? Do you think he has options? I guess it could just be replacing whoever replaces him, if it's Albon or Vettel or someone else from the grid.
Now, that's the thing, isn't it? He's underperformed that much. I've gone from him just leaving McLaren to saying, I don't think he should be an F1. Now, will he be an F1? I don't think he'll be an F1. I think this is his final season. I think he's going to do No, I don't think he'll do IndyCar.
He just
I'm
like
not
America.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I've not really thought about it, but thinking about it now, on the spot, I don't think he'll be an F1. I think. Oh, no, it's a tricky one. It depends on like who replaces him. If it's Piastri, then if it is Vettel, then I guess he could be a straight swap. But yeah,
It's
I'm going to
also
bet
a
on
weird
it
one.
now and say I don't think he'll be an F1. I don't know what he's going to do, but yeah.
It's also a weird one because it depends how the replacement comes in. Like, if Albon or Vettel or Piastri or Herta come in and absolutely stink, then like it will be a Gasly effect where it looks a lot more favourable on Ricciardo because it's not just him. So I think. See, the thing is, like, I just don't get where, like, he's not going to go to Merc, Red Bull, or Ferrari. And then the other place is because he's kind of going up against experienced drivers. Then you've got Bottas, who's been good for Alfa Romeo this season, has shown more over the past 2 years that he should be on the grid than Ricciardo. Haas, who, again, with Kevin Magnussen, I think you could make the argument, but I just don't think. I think Magnussen shown more this season. I don't think there's a reason that you should get rid of Magnussen. He's showing what you want from that position, and you bring in Ricciardo, and if it goes downhill, I think Latifi's the only one that, like, on paper, I could see him replacing, but it's just the money aspect. So, yeah, I did actually.
Either way, he'll be taking a massive pay cut. Now, whether that matters to him or not, I'm not sure. But rather than staying for getting 15 million from McLaren for another year, he'll be getting a massive pay cut if he goes to Williams or Haas.
Yeah,
or Aston.
I don't know. It's the game though, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
if you don't perform, you don't get paid. Like, it's that easy. And I don't. Yeah, it's just Williams. But again, I don't really. Is Latifi kind of? Yeah, maybe that's the one.
There's going to be lots of rumours about this. I think there's going to be a lot of little reports and people saying, "Oh, he's such and such," and I think
anytime you speak with anyone,
I feel like my opinion is going to change quite a bit over the next couple of months. But right now, I'll try and stick with my opinion. I don't think he'll be an F1 just pure because of his performances that bad.
I came into this and I was thinking, yeah, he'll find another F1 seat. But now I'm looking down the list and there's really not any easy seats. Like, there's not.
Well, let's say this. Why would a team want him? Markability, I guess. Marketability. Is it marketability? Yeah. Marketability. I don't know. Well, because of that, because he's still, even though he's not a top driver now, he's got that character, that personality.
It's the driver he was. It's it's the belief that he can rediscover that form. Exactly. That's what it is. So, yeah.
And like you could say McLaren, it just didn't work out at that team for whatever reason and that kind of thing. But,
yeah, but now it's a gamble. Like 2 years ago, any team bringing in Ricciardo, it was, you're going to be great. Like you're bringing in a star driver, and now it's a gamble. He could rediscover this. So yeah, and I'll just quickly read off what Freddie said about who should replace him, even though he doesn't think he will be replaced. This is really hard. You need an adaptable driver, someone who can be very fast.
That's not Freddie's voice, Adam. Come on.
Do you want to try it?
No, thanks.
Oh, exactly. Should. He's been very fast in lots of different cars and is free for a move. Basically, no one on the grid. That's why I'm in favour of fresh blood. Colton Herta or Pato Award, who we've not talked about, from IndyCar, in Oscar Piastri perhaps too. As rookies, they can be nurtured into the McLaren way of driving an F1 car better. It worked with Norris. Why not one of them? Question is contracts, but weirdly, I can see Piastri in Papaya. He goes with Piastri as well. I'm actually, even like 15 minutes later than we were talking about it, I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm kind of leaning more towards Vettel already.
Okay, all right, you've changed your mind already.
Yeah, exactly. But even then,
I'm sticking with my left field pillow, I'm going to stick with
could get into like Vettel's car instead. So yeah, I'm actually going to change my prediction. But like you say, lots more will change depending on what rumours come out. But yeah, Freddie is saying no, it shouldn't. No, he shouldn't get replaced. He should stay with McLaren. But if he is, then Piastri is the one for Freddie. But finally, moving on to another midfield driver who's had better performances this season, it's Esteban Ocon. Nigel, you wanted to talk about him, so take it away.
Yeah, it's his home race this weekend, and I don't think it's not been talked about that much at all by anyone this year. He's ahead of Alonso in the championship. I don't think the standings really prove it doesn't tell the full story. Let's say, because I think Alonso has been a bit better. Ocon's still been solid, and it's a weird one because a few years ago he was being touted to replace Bottas at Mercedes. It just seems that hype over the last 12 months has almost gone about him. He's always stuck at Alpine, and that might not be a bad thing if Alpine do continue to improve. It's just I don't know. He's not been talked about anywhere near as much as he used to be. I guess I don't know if it's because Leclerc are now being talked about a lot more, and so Sainz and that kind of thing because they are at the front. But the Ocon, because he is in that young generation, but he's always kind of been forgotten about a little bit. And I can't see him. He's contracted to Alpine until 2024, I think, because he signed a 3-year deal last year. Yeah, I don't know. Just a bit of that status has gone slightly, even though he hasn't been performing badly, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think it's just because he went in and really dominated Perez in Force India, and then I think it's also just a bit of an emotional thing where you see this driver and he's got the story that he has where he's had to really fight for this seat, and then gets to it and it seems to be taken away from him because of money. It's kind of the ultimate negative F1 story. So I think that maybe fueled a lot of the discourse around him and his career. But I agree. I never kind of really bought into the rumours that he would replace Bottas. I know it was kind of talked about, but I don't know. It didn't seem like the right time for them to make that switch. But yeah, I think it's fair. I think it's just, he's not, if he was coming in, if he was going to be that championship contender and that, star of the future, then you'd expect that he'd have been able to, beat Alonso or at least match Alonso. And like you say, Alonso just has had the edge over him. It's not a huge edge, but it is still there. And I think that's the reason. It's just you need to be beating your teammate really, unless you're George.
Oh, he is. It's just with a bit of fortune.
Well, yeah,
which not everyone sees, but yeah, I don't know. So he doesn't quite have the same status as he did at Force India when he was new to F1. So what do you think the next few years entail for him? Yes, he's got that contract at Alpine. Is he just going to see that out, do you think? And if a top team doesn't come for him, he's just going to stay there for the next few years?
Yeah, to be honest, that's kind of what I see. I think just staying in, I just don't, unless his performances, I don't think he's anywhere near the performance level where you get rid of him. I don't think that should be on the table right now. But I think it will just be kind of year to year or contract to contract. If he has a couple of down years, then he'll be at risk. I kind of see it as a bit of a Hulkenberg career, really, just kind of staying, obviously very, highly touted. At least
he's won a race and been on a podium.
Well, exactly. So, he's already better than that. But yeah, highly touted coming in, getting to a midfield team and never, kind of think maybe had a break to get there early on that didn't happen. And now, I just see him being, that midfield driver, doing good performances in the midfield. I think he'll be a reliable driver for Alpine and he's very fast, but I just don't see where that step up would come from. And I think, like I said at the start, I think it'll be very season to season. If he puts a couple of really good seasons together, then he'll be in the market for that. But equally, if he has a couple of bad seasons, then, he'll be looking at either a demotion or getting flushed out of F1 like we were talking about with Ricciardo. So, I think, it depends who comes in. If he stays with Alpine, which I would expect he would, then it depends who comes in alongside him when Alonso finally leaves. If it's Piastri, then his performances against Piastri will be the barometer. And I think it just, he needs to be close to his teammate really to keep staying there. But yeah, what do you kind of see from his future?
I think I completely agree. He's not going to go to Red Bull because Verstappen's there. We know they also don't get on very well. Hamilton and Russell are going to be at Mercedes for a couple more years at least. And then it's only Ferrari, where unless Sainz and Leclerc fall out, then there could be an opportunity there. But equally, Ocon has a little bit of a character where he doesn't always listen to team orders, that kind of thing. So I don't think it suits Ferrari. So his best bet is exactly what you're saying: stay at Alpine, hope they can make that step forward and get towards the front, which might happen because the development rate is absolutely huge, and Alpine have been bringing upgrades at every race, so they just got to keep chipping away, hoping they get closer, and just it's the hope that keeps you going, isn't it? And just hope that next year that they are capable of getting podiums and possibly win. So I think he's definitely doing a good enough job to stay at Alpine. So I think that's what he's going to be for the next 2-3 years, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad. That's
no, of course.
A Hulkenberg career, but with having won a race and got podiums in F1, I don't think it's a bad existence by any stretch. It's it's a really solid career. So that's not a negative. Where if he stays in the midfield, if he stays at Alpine or Aston Martin or McLaren for the next 10 years, then that's not. Yes, he's not won a world championship, but it's not a failure by any stretch. It's just, he's not only 6 drivers, four or 6 drivers can be in the top teams, and he's just not in that bracket. So it's not saying Ocon's failed, but it's just I don't see him in that extremely high echelon, basically.
Yep, I'd have to agree.
How do you think he'll do this weekend?
Question. I think.
Thank you.
I think you're welcome. I think Alpine will be strong. I mean, they've been strong last few races. I think it's a weird track, Paul Ricard. It's super smooth, no runoff, quite high, medium speed turns. So on home soil, I'd like to think he can possibly beat Alonso on merit. That'll be quite good to see. But I think if there's no collisions up front, he'll still be 6th, 7th around that area, and that's his target every weekend at the moment. Because I think Alpine are clearly behind Mercedes now, but they're just a little bit ahead of McLaren, Alfa Romeo, those teams.
Yeah. He's not. He's never finished a race. Sorry, he never scored points at Paul Ricard.
Oh yeah.
It's I don't know. F1 has, and we buy into it as well, like the kind of narrative of it's the home race, and then I feel like more often than not, just generally, then it disappoints. But I don't know. I think obviously the Alpine engine pretty strong. There's a fair amount of straights. That long back straight.
I'm really impressed with that because they've had the worst engine for last year. They certainly did, and for them to make the step they have, I think it's kind of underestimated. They've made and it's been quite reliable as well, largely. Yes, I think Alonso had a couple of problems, but it's not been. Ferrari's been worse. The step Alpine or Renault, the Alpine Renault engine has gone from last year to this year has been absolutely huge. So amazing job from the team.
Yeah, do you think it really was that bad last year?
I'll tell you, it was the worst. Yeah,
I'd say it was
the worst.
I'd say Ferraris was.
Ferraris, do you think?
Yeah, well, I remember. I could be wrong, but I don't. So. Yeah, I think regardless, the engine they've got out this season is fantastic, and it's. I think that'll be that double back straight at Paul Ricard. It should really suit that, but it's. I don't know. I'm not just going to predict him doing well because he's French. Basically, I think I'm going to say he finishes 9th.
Nice. We'll come back to that. No, we won't. Will we?
No, we won't. We never do. But maybe that. No, it won't. Anyway, and continuing with Paul Ricard, seeing it is the Grand Prix this weekend. Bit of conversation around the race because. It's not. Last year was a great French Grand Prix. Before that, it's not really impressed. It was most fans kind of bottom 5 circuits on the calendar. So, Nigel, should it stay on the calendar?
I think there needs to be a French Grand Prix because you've got Alpine as a team there. You've got Ocon. You've got Gasly. We used to have Grosjean. It's one of the first Grand Prix, like not F1 World Championship race. I was at Silverstone. It was where the first Grand Prix was held. It was in France in 11 or 3, somewhere in the early 20th century.
It's in Po. I know that.
Yeah, it was in. Yeah, there you go. So I think, and it's the FIA as well. That's from France. So the problem is there's no super amazing track. I guess it's either Paul Ricard, Manicourt, or a street circuit, which they're going to have to build, and that will take a few years to sort out. So I wouldn't mind if it dropped off the calendar, but equally, I think it gets a bit too much stick, I guess, from fans, in its current form.
I think this year's, if this year's is good as well, it will maybe change a lot of that, because then you have 2 back-to-back years and it maybe becomes more about the cars than not. But yeah, I think out of the European ones, it's probably the one that I would mind shedding least. I'll say it that way. Apart from maybe Spain.
I mean, the thing is, there's no Germany, is there? And you got Mercedes, you got German drivers.
Yeah.
And, we should always say that should come back to the track. And I'd rather have Germany over France. So, and Germany's not going to come back anytime soon, I don't think. So, that aspect as well. But it's what I talked about when they announced Las Vegas. I said one of France, Monaco, Spa, or 2 or 3 of those are going to go. So, and that is the problem. And that's why I wasn't in favour of Las Vegas.
Well, I think
I don't know.
I think if anywhere, I'd rather, as I said at the time, I'd rather see Miami go than Las Vegas. But on Freddie also left a message from the Beyond saying, should Paul Ricard stay? I like the French Grand Prix. Paul Ricard is quite annoying though. So is Magny-Cours. Give us a South of France street race. Oh, look, Monaco. Looks like it's a nah. So he's saying, no, it shouldn't stay. Which kind of fits into your thing as well. There is already a race in France. It's just in Monaco, but it is still in France. So yeah, it's I don't know. I'd rather see it go than most races. Really, Spain's the only one where I'm like, I can make the argument.
Then you got Alonso Sainz too, haven't you? And it's classic track. I'd say Spain's more of a classic track. It's been around early 90s, I think.
Yeah, and they've renovated it.
There was the massive 30-year break, wasn't there? So 30
it's
or 40
just
years.
not, like, as a spectacle, it's not that amazing either. So yeah, and there's talk of a South African Grand Prix, which could replace Spa on the calendar. These are just rumours at the moment, but we shall see. And finally, keeping with the French Grand Prix, rather, Freddie thinks Mercedes are going to win it. Where do you? He didn't say which Mercedes driver though. So
yeah, but the fact he thinks Mercedes are going to win it, that's laughing. Hungary, that's the one. Hungary, the one after France, that'll be the one. I don't think Mercedes are going to win it. I think there'll be somewhere. What did he say something then? I forgot. I didn't. No, I did not. Okay, right.
Winging it.
I think Mercedes will be somewhere between Silverstone and. In fact, no. I think they'll be where in Austria, but they'll just qualify higher, so they'll be like within the pit stop window of Ferrari and Red Bull. But I think they'll still be a couple of temps behind. I think it'll be similar to kind of Canada, that race for them. I think where Hamilton was like, he had a great race, but he was just a couple of temps slower. They couldn't quite keep up. So I think it'll be similar to that for Mercedes, and then in terms of Red Bull, Ferrari. It's just a guessing game. It's 50-50. It is. We talked about it on the last podcast. It's going to come down to who can deliver in Q3 on the final run, and get that start on pole. And then it's just about tyre wear, which team can find the best setup to manage the tyres. Because Paul Ricard, as we saw last year, we had that great 2-stop versus 1-stop strategy kind of race between Red Bull and Mercedes, so you do get tyre deg at Paul Ricard. So I don't know. I hate being on the fence though. I'm going to edge towards Ferrari.
I think Ferrari will be quicker on raw pace, slightly.
Yeah.
I think the kind of, the high speed or medium speed corners and the, just long swooping corners into another corner. I hang to Mark Paul Ricard, but I think that'll be, they'll be quicker. But like you say, with the DEG, it's just whoever can find the right setup and the right groove with that. But I am also going to say Ferrari, but I think they screw up the strategy and Red Bull win. So that's, I just don't trust them. I just, so I was going to say Perez win, but no, it's not going to happen, is it?
Hang on, you said Ferrari, but then you can say Perez. Oh, yes, screw the strategy. I think Paul Leclerc win. I think that.
You say Paul Leclerc win?
Paul Leclerc, is that the circuit name? Is it?
Paul Leclerc. 50-year-old baker from Clermont. I always love Leclerc. We have the same name. He's fantastic.
Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
Charles Leclerc.
Oh, okay. Ferrari said, "Come up." They say, "Oh, you can have the seat for today." Charlie's feeling unwell. He has too much pastry. You're right. And then he wins. So that's Nigel's prediction. Yeah, I'm going to go with
that.
Well, you're going to have to put up with it in person on Tuesday. So don't use all your frustration up now.
That's if I turn up. You're picking up my certificate thing or whatever they give you. Remember?
I have to take my glasses off and then I can't see. So I probably will shake him left-handed just because I can't see what he's holding.
You're shaking someone else if you're not careful.
Oh dear. What a way to end the podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and we shall see what happens both with Nigel's graduation and Freddie's graduation, which we've not talked about because he is he likes graduation. But yeah, we'll see you after that for hopefully a review of a very exciting French Grand Prix. But bye for now. Thanks very much for listening. See ya.